Score or bore? It's time for my review of Paranormal Activity 4. Hi everyone, it's me Ben and welcome to Entertainment Zone for my opening day review of Paranormal Activity 4. Wow, okay. This is really not the review I would have thought I would have been doing for a Paranormal Activity movie. So I'm just going to come straight off the bat and say it. This is by far the worst entry in the Paranormal Activity series. In the Saw series, the fourth movie to me was the worst, and now I can say the same about Paranormal Activity. It was a shambles. It really, really was a mess. To say it had, Christopher Landon returning as writer and Henry Joost and Ariel Schulman returning as directors, I just can't fathom what has happened. It was a really bad movie. The movie picks up 5 years after the events of Paranormal Activity 2's ending. We get the brief reminder of Katie abducting her nephew Hunter, and then we get reminded that her whereabouts remain unknown, and then the story picks up 5 years later, no longer in California but in Nevada, and with a new family. And the movie had potential, but it just executed everything horribly. Walking out of the movie, when I came out of Paranormal Activity 3, I thought, do you know what? They actually know where they're going with this. They've added all this mythology in, and I really think, they've got it planned out. Walking out of this movie, I'm now thinking, Landon, the writer, is making it up as he goes along. He doesn't have a clue where he's going with it. And my confidence has been knocked. I'm still a fan of the series. If they make a 5th movie, would I go and see it? Yes, of course. But I probably won't be as excited as I was with previous entries. I mean, the trailers for number 2 and 3 really hyped me up, but the trailer for 4 did nothing to me, and neither did the movie. The acting, the kids are good. The kids who play Robbie and Wyatt, excellent actors for kids. I must acknowledge that. I've heard mixed opinions on Kathryn Newton, who plays Alex, not Alice. Alex, I can confirm that now. And but I thought she was rather convincing as, a typical teenage American girl. She played the character well. She was likeable. The guy who plays her boyfriend, called Ben, same name as me, he was a good actor too. And actually, I think apart from Dennis in Paranormal Activity 3, he is the only really likeable male character in the series. And he's funny and he's good to Alex. And, I liked the chemistry between Alex and Ben. But, yeah, but the thing is, it had good aspects like that in. And Katie Featherston, I won't go into it just yet, but I will say she has a lot more screen time in this movie than in Paranormal Activity 3. And it was great seeing her back. I was like, oh, she's back. It was the breath of fresh air this movie needed. Had it had no Katie in it or barely any, it would have just flagged even more than it did. So yeah, it's always great having Katie back. The film lacks notable scares. In number 2, you had the exploding kitchen. 3 had numerous scares. You had the kitchen dropping from the ceiling. You had Grandma's house. You had Katie being pulled up by a hair by Toby. It was brilliant. Even the first one, the footprints, or Katie being dragged out of bed, or the ending of the first movie, they were all really notable. But to me, there was nothing really stand out to me. The last 10 minutes were good, but when I look at Paranormal Activity 3's last 20 minutes, that was the absolute peak, the climax point of terror. In Paranormal Activity 4, the last 10 minutes is only when it feels like things are going to start to get going, and the movie ends suddenly. So, quite a few of us in the cinema actually out loud just went, oh, that's it. Oh dear. And I went with my nan to see this because I got her into the movies, actually. She watched 1, 2 and 3 on Blu-ray, and she's like, yeah, I'll come with you to see 4. And I was just like, yes, you're going to love it. It's such a great experience in the cinema, and it was just dire. The audience was not reacting, and everyone seemed to be coming out of the theatre just shocked by how bad it was. Yeah, it lacks no notable scares. There were 1 or 2 moments that are just like, that's good. And there's moments where you think, I bet that's going to happen, but unfortunately it doesn't. A lot of people bitched about Paranormal Activity 3's trailer being misleading because none of the footage was in the movie. But I really liked that, and I like that even more now, having seen this movie, because all of the footage from the trailer is in the movie, more or less. So you know what scares are coming. I was just like, oh. And there seemed potential where scares could be really built up, and they just fell flat. But there was no real defining scares. The best part of the movie was easily the last 10 minutes. The movie raised a ton of new questions, but answered very few. It failed to expand the mythology much at all. It was a disappointing movie. It really, really was. The movie has a twist, which I guessed earlier on in the movie, and it did turn out to be correct. So yeah, it was a real letdown for me, this movie. Easily the worst in the series. I would probably give it 5 out of 10 or 2 out of 5. Very disappointing. Oh, and something else I should point out. I was correct. There is a teaser for the Latino Paranormal Activity spin-off right at the end of the credits. It shows someone with a camera going into a store in Mexico, and there's a Jesus statue and all sorts of stuff. And you hear a rumble, and then there's this crazy lady saying, oh, get out, telling him to get out. And it just cuts off. It seemed to have no relevance to anything whatsoever. And it was just as stupid and mysterious and unexplainable as this movie was. So I'm going to go into a few spoilers now. So if you don't want to be spoiled, if you haven't seen the movie, stop watching now and come back when you have seen it. Or if you have seen the movie, then, please continue watching. So we'll talk about the twist. The twist of the movie is that Wyatt, Alex's brother, is actually Hunter and not Katie's son, Robbie. We find out they're both adopted, but Hunter is actually Wyatt. But I guess this because, Wyatt says, I get along with Robbie because we're both adopted. And as soon as I heard that, I thought, there's a twist coming here and Wyatt's going to be Hunter. And that is exactly what happened. So that was disappointing. As far as some of the scares, I only actually jumped once, unbelievably, in a Paranormal Activity. And usually in the theatres, I'm jumping all the time. There was once. And it's when there was a loud bang when Alice is following a trail which leads into a cupboard, and a train goes off. But before it, there's a loud bang, and that made me jump. But that was probably the only thing to make me like, ooh. Some of the scare moments were obvious. The chandelier falling we'd seen in the trailer. The levitation scene, I was expecting something to happen after it. Nothing did. A knife vanishes, which was great. And I was expecting it to come back later and fall and stab the dad in the head. That would have been great. Even my nan said she was expecting that to happen. It never did. It fell, you know, and landed on a chopping board. It just didn't. I don't know. They had so many potential moments that they could have done. The ending was very easily the best. I was going to say very good, but not necessarily very good. Very easily the best part of the movie. You know, Hunter goes back over to Katie's house after Katie has killed Ben and Alex's mum. You know, so Alex and her dad go over to Katie's house, and the dad gets dragged off by the demon. And then, you know, Alice comes face to face with Katie, and she runs. And there's a brilliant scene, which I did like, where Katie just goes all demonic and puts her fist through the door. That was good. But then later on, when they go out, she goes outside and she finds Hunter. And then there's Katie, and she turns around, and there is a flock of witches from the coven, literally dozens of them, and they all are demonic. They all look demonic in the face. And they go to grab Alex, and the computer falls, and that's the end of the movie. We don't know if she's dead or whether it's just the camera breaking. It was finally starting to pick up, and it just ended. The movie wasted a lot of its time on fake laugh scares at the beginning, which was just lame. The only one that I thought did work well was Ben dragging Alex back off the bed, because in Australia obviously I think it's just, oh, she's being pulled back, but you know, whatever. So there was a lot of missed potential, and it did really ask a lot more questions. For me, the biggest question coming out of this movie was, if the coven were waiting to put the demon into Hunter, why get him adopted into another family at all? Why don't let Katie raise him, or another coven member raise him? It didn't make any sense, because the title card at the beginning, Katie and Hunter's whereabouts remains unknown, not remained, remains. So that implies for 5 years Katie managed to stay on the run with him. Why did, you know, she stayed on the run, so why was Hunter not put in with the family? You know, with a family in the coven, or raised just by Katie? What was the point of doing the whole Wyatt thing? And then why did Katie adopt Robbie? Was his sole purpose just to get Wyatt to believe he's Hunter and that he has to go back to the demon? Demonised Katie was great. She's a phenomenal actress, Katie Featherston, and she did a good job in this movie. We got no answers about what the coven ultimately want Hunter possessed for, why they need him. Obviously we've got the hint in the second movie that, you know, it's maintaining the demon's end of the bargain. You know, he gave grandma wealth or whatever, and now but the demon wants Hunter. I can understand that, but there's no reason why they want him possessed. We still don't know what happened to Katie and Christy after grandma took them away at the end of Paranormal Activity 3. And we don't know why Katie and the coven didn't just raise Hunter themselves. So many unanswered questions, and new unanswered questions. They kind of look into the mythology of the symbol a bit more, and they talk about how they need a blood sacrifice of a virgin. Was that the only reason they put Hunter in with a new family, so they could go after Alex? Surely you're telling me a cult of that size, when you see them all at the end of the movie, couldn't just kidnap a virgin and kill them? It just was a really jumbled mess, and the movie had a lot of wasted opportunities. The Kinect camera as well, I should also point out. Sometimes it was effective on there. When you see the outline of something moving in towards Wyatt before he's revealed to be Hunter, that was great. And when Katie just appears, that was good. But it's nowhere near on the level of creepiness as Fan Cam from part 2. So yes, ultimately, Paranormal Activity 4 was a disappointment. Where could they go next? Well, they could carry on directly from this movie. I would like a Katie-centric movie. I think we're at the point we need to see it now. It could wrap the movie series up if they wanted. What ultimately is this coven going to do with Possessed Hunter? They could do an interval between parts 2 and 4, showing why the cult and Katie couldn't raise Hunter. What happened when she took him away straight away? Was anyone looking for Hunter, like Ali, perhaps? No mention of her in this movie. And they could also carry on from the end of Paranormal Activity 3. What did Grandma do to the girls? How long was Katie possessed for as a child? How did she brainwash them, and what did she brainwash them to believe? There's so many unanswered questions, and to me, that, as I've just listed, there's 3 different scenarios that could make another 3 movies. I'd like the movie series to continue, but only if they have a clear idea of where they're going. If not, it's time to wrap it up neatly. As a big fan of this series, I predict that other big fans like myself will find this movie a disappointment. For the general teenage audience, yeah, it might be scary to them, but the crowd I was with felt very unenthusiastic about it after leaving the theatre. So if you've seen the movie, let me know your thoughts on it. If you've got any questions, leave a comment, and ask. Leave comments what you thought about the movie. Let's get a discussion going. Where should the movie go next? What's your opinion on that? I want to know all your thoughts, because I think there was a big debate to be had about this movie. I really, really do. And don't forget, for all the latest movie news and reviews, be sure to subscribe. And if I hear anything about Paranormal Activity 5, I'll let you know.